to change the building. We had 3 dead ends in the building, which wasn't kind.
Oh, the doors are through now, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's a figure of 8. Yeah.
And
what
who funded that though?
It's a company.
Didn't
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a really big investment, but
So you have no money coming from the government side?
no, sadly not.
Well, no,
It's a
this
poor
is
man's
it.
service.
The way I looked at it, and I know I spoke last time basically about it, mentioned that you don't see it as
A money cow, a cash cow.
that's, yeah, people pay now
Yeah.
because they get a diagnosis of dementia, whereas somebody in a situation has that, you know, a health problem, the class is an actual disability.
Hmm.
And this is where we find that we're not seeing, you know, that part not changing as quick as I expected.
Yeah, and I think it's a stigma, isn't it? It's because you can't see dementia, and that's why I show some shocking brain pictures, because you can't see it.
Some learners I've had have just said, oh well, yeah, when you first started with it, well, it's just what happens when you get old, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
but
I'm like,
everything
no,
gets
is
blamed
it-
on dementia. And
Yeah,
it's like, no,
dementia.
let's just look at your temper tantrums when you're at home. Is it because
Oh, absolutely.
we're all human beings, and the environment is a key factor. And especially when in the afternoon people might get unsettled, and people call that sundowning. But people like to walk, and if you're constantly being told to sit down, sit down, sit down,
Yes.
you can't eliminate all the risk, but as managers you feel pressured that you need to, you know, dot your I's, cross your T's. It's a big blame culture that we work in. So if you let that control you too much, you can get overwhelmed, and before you know it, you know, you are contributing to behaviours and bad environments. It's balancing
You
the
know,
whole...
it's like being a kid, isn't it? When you're growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents say, sit down and shut up. And then when you become of age, you say, get out and start talking to your mates. You know, it's entirely different, isn't it?
Yeah, but people learn to lose skills, aren't they? It's patronising, it's wrong, and then you get a really negative
But what I
response.
find, I think we can't do without homes. Don't get me wrong. We cannot do without homes. But I feel the way how they're funded, because the people has actually saved all their life, they might have had premiums cashed in or anything like that, but they've worked for that money to pay for their house. And it's a shame when they've got to sell the house to look after themselves well till they die. This is why I'm on about the government.
But you
I think they should put out.
John, if I could actually say something, I just recently returned from South Africa, and I went to go and visit a very good family friend. I've known Doreen from when I was in my about 14, 15. She lives in a retirement village. Now, they've really changed in, I was last in Durban over 30 years ago, but they had really changed. This is, it's like an estate.
Yeah.
People live independently. They are encouraged to live independently. In her retirement village, there are approximately 1,500 people. That's husbands and wives, single people. They have what we call terraces. Here they have the little mews. They've got flats. They've also got a frail care centre. So, but they have staff on the grounds for everyone.
Yeah.
There is security through the perimeter, but they are free to wander, if you will, but there is still that security in place. They have a restaurant, they have a hairdressers, they've got a post office, they've got a mini supermarket, and I looked at this and I said, geez, that's what we need in the UK.
We do.
We've started that in Europe.
Yeah, and even from the financial point of view that you were talking about, what they do that I could get the gist of was people actually buy the right to live in their townhouse or their terrace or their flat for their lifetime. And it's not over the odds. You know, it's not like you would be buying a house. And that gives you the right to remain in there without being disturbed. It's your home,
So is this right from setting out in life, like you meet your life partner? And you
No,
like
they do
later
have
on,
their criteria is you've got to be 50.
Right.
Okay, because they actually changed, because previously it was, I think, 60, and they've reduced it to 50. And there's a very strong possibility, dependent on what the community's needs are. You know, we were talking about early onset. It might be that it gets reduced even further, you know. But I really did think that for certainly a larger care provider, or even a property investor, that would be an awesome opportunity.
I think the key thing there though is community, isn't it? And I'm often
Yes.
asked about how
Yes.
can we make the community more dementia friendly.
Yes.
And I think we're trying to go back. I mean, I'm only 37, I might look a bit old, I've had a hard paper round. But I think what we're doing is going back to when I was a kid and I used to play out. I couldn't get away with nothing because before I'd got home, somebody told my mum and dad, you know, if I was wearing spitting, not meant to do any of these things. But it got back.
Yeah.
Because the community was there, everybody knew everybody, everybody helped everybody.
But you see,
And I think that's what's lacking because nobody knows the neighbours
but then there's also the fear factor.
and the stigma.
Yes. And not only the stigma, but the fear factor in terms of people don't want to be seen to interfering.
Yes.
Because they are afraid if they say or do something, they are going to be sued or be in bother or whatever. And there isn't that balance anymore.
Yeah.
You know, that
Also, if you look last night on TV, about pairing up young children who maybe have difficulties with ADHD or skipping school or problems at home, and actually paired them up in their own community with pensioners. That's no one was last night. And actually, it was a great thing to watch because there was no pressure off either, but both would learn from each other. And I think that's what we've lost. That learning from each other.
Yeah.
It's communicating really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Are we still on film? It's communicating really. I thought we still...
what I would like to do is actually introduce, just looking at the time, I'd like to introduce our next guest speakers. They're two gentlemen, Steve and, please pronounce your name for me. Zahir from Zenith Solicitors. So if they would like to come through, and following Zahir and Steve is going to be, I'm in the right place.
I've got a card here.
Thank you. Is it Tabs from Mahmoud's Farmer that will give some good insight for you guys. Is that okay?
Yeah, we'll just set this up. Thank you very much. Just give us a sec, please. We'll just put this back on.
Sorry, man.
No, you're not sure.
Want some water? Yes.
Still on the left, I think.
Sorry?
Just over on the left, I think.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Slideshow.
That's it, you know. Just make sure you don't come back. Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, if I can just introduce myself. Thank you. I'm Steve. I'm an advisor to Zenith Lawyers, LLP, and my colleague, who's the company partner, Zahir, on my left here. I just want to say, first of all, before I go much further, just thank you to the previous two speakers, John and John. I found that extremely enlightening, though it's not our line of business, but I thought it was really, really informative. Okay, what I want to do today is tell you a bit about who we are, what we do, and what we can provide for business folk, particularly in the care sectors where we tend to specialise across the north of England. And I'll tell you effectively what I think we can do. We are advising and we've contracted to a number of clients now. Zenith Lawyers is a legally regulated firm. It's a law practice which has been around for a number of years now. And we are regulated, of course, by the SRA, which is the Solicitor's Regulation Authority. We do provide our clients with a whole range of advisory, representational and guidance services in employment law, human resources and health and safety. And we do advise and support clients very directly with governing bodies, regulatory bodies and so forth. And the point of what we do, there are a number of competitors in our field. I'd say there's probably about half a dozen across the north of England, perhaps more than that. But they share one thing in common which we don't. None of these firms are law firms. They're not regulated effectively by anyone. They don't form part of the SRA. They don't come under that umbrella for the regulator, and clearly for that reason don't have like self-compliance, which our company does. Okay. In our bespoke employment services, what we don't do is just sign you up to a ridiculously long contract of what appears to be our competitors' norm of around 6 years or so. And then from that, just give you access to templates, websites which say, in the event of this, do that. I mean, as everyone will probably be aware, for those of you in the care sector and direct employers, there's an awful lot more to handling, for example, a disciplinary case, which may transpire to be an employment tribunal case in the future. And of course, our role is to try and prevent you from getting to there, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But you don't want that. You have Judy on the shop floor. It's caused a problem. It's been said that she's reported something to the press, maybe a matter of theft or some other harassment or some other misconduct like that. What you don't want to do is go onto a website that says follow these rules. We provide a bespoke service to clients, right from the initial, your staff handbook, which will talk about your contractual obligations to your staff. It will include a number of policies, core policies like discipline, grievance, health and safety, whistleblowing, sickness absence management and so forth. Equal opportunities and redundancy and so forth. You have these set out in a handbook which will come about as a result of Zenith coming to see you. We'll come to your workplace, we'll talk you through the nature of you'll talk us through the nature of your business, and we will tailor these bespoke services specifically to you. So your employment handbook, for example, which staff will have access to, will not have our name on it, it will have your name on it, and we are completely accessible. For all the time you need any follow-up, backup and guidance, you'll come on to us. Next one please, yeah. As you can see there, we will produce bespoke job descriptions, annual leave request forms, family-friendly policies, advice on job sharing, maternity leave, recorded conversations. Anyone know what a recorded conversation is? Yeah, you will do. A lot of you will do, and I think it's particularly yourself, John, from a trade union background. These are settlement agreements. These are things that came in just over 2 years ago, and they've changed the nature of the business relationship with the employee. A lot of people still think back to the days of you just send a letter to someone who's got an issue, have a disciplinary hearing on the day, and decide what you want to do. Things are far more complex now. For example, the ACAS Code of Practice, which the tribunals look at as a guidance to whether an employer has carried out a fair procedure or not, will very much depend on how the employer puts that across. Now, that's a headache that the employer doesn't need to normally worry about, and there's a number of people you can phone. And if you have a contract with, say, one of the companies which we compete with, you'll get access to a website. Really, you need these conversations, in the workplace. If you're not sure what you're doing, the consequences are potentially quite damaging for the company. If you've done followed a procedure which you consider to be fair, but it turns out the tribunals don't see it that way, and you're not represented and so forth. Particularly around the Equality Act and so forth. You may have carried out an act which would have once upon a time seemed very reasonable, but it's going to cost you several £1000s now, your legal costs and the legal costs of the other side and so forth. So it's about staying ahead, keeping in touch, doing things that are supposed to be practical and which your staff will understand. Now, we do a number of things. Right at the beginning, if you become a client of Zenith, you will be assigned your personal account manager. That means that the same individual, who will be a legal professional, will manage all your employment affairs. They will take all the data that you wish to share with us. We'll upload that into a cloud-based case management system, which you can access at any time, including updates which we periodically send to you. For example, changes in the law, which are very prominent these days. Governments of all shades do seem to have a very keen eye on employment law and decide whether it's about employment at a tribunal fee regime, about discrimination law, and a whole range of policies and procedures that you need to adhere to be compliant. We will keep you abreast of those at all times, and if and when need be, we'll come out to see you on the site. We won't always just be on the end of a phone, which we will be if you need us. As you can see there, we're looking at tribunal cases particularly. ACAS and early conciliation. I know John's probably got a very good grounding in that. Is there any of the audience here, are you familiar with the term early conciliation? Feel free to interrupt me anytime, by the way, sorry.
That mediation before it kind of goes to the tribunal?
Yes.
Before, to try and stop it going to...
Yeah, that's effectively the side. And they will try to broker settlement. It's advisory, ACAS of course, advisory, conciliation and arbitration services. Now, I know that some clients of ours and other employers will struggle a little bit with that because you, for example, have just dismissed someone for misconduct. You're absolutely clear you've done that correctly. You may well have done. Especially if you follow our guidance, you will do that properly. Nevertheless, you receive a form called an ET3 from the Employment Tribunals, which says the employee you have just dismissed has formulated a complaint under that and wishes to have the case for unfair dismissal heard. It could be a constructive dismissal case, which is quite similar, or it could be for a number of discrimination issues. And that former member of staff has contacted ACAS as they're required to do under the law. ACAS will immediately then contact the employer and say, look, what they won't do is say you should do this or you should do that, and if you don't do this, that will happen. What they'll talk to you broadly is how the procedure was. But ultimately it's your decision, and the person claiming unfair dismissal may believe they've got a case. They may have been to a firm of solicitors who don't get involved in workplace issues, but will bring up the legal aspects of it. And you can have a letter from the solicitor saying, look, you've disadvantaged our client, you've unfairly dismissed them, you're convinced you've done everything right, and we want to talk to you about a settlement. So you phone them up and they say, well, give us £11,000–12,000 and we'll call that a result. But where do you go with that? You're talking to ACAS meanwhile as well. We'll do that for you. We can do that for you. That's not a problem. At the beginning as well, in a case, we can issue you with an indemnity which covers you in the event that you do. Because with the greatest will in the world, some employers do end up at tribunals. There are probably more tribunal cases now being lodged, if not making it to the final tribunal. People claiming unfair dismissal, constructive dismissal, discrimination, unlawful deduction from salary, and another number of legal claims that are being made. It is a minefield, and I would say that, but I say that because it's true. And as an employer, you've got a core business to deal with, and you don't particularly want to be spending an hour and a half every day talking to ACAS, or going to meetings with, or corresponding with a solicitor who's representing a dismissed employee. But that's what you'd have to do. We take that pressure off you. Okay. On the health and safety side of it as well, we don't just do the employment law and the HR side. We'll give you, for example, a comprehensive health and safety policy which you, as a business person and an employer, would have tailored exactly to suit the needs of your company. For example, you may have operations in more than one site. We will devise you two similarly but equally legally compliant policies referring to one nature of business as opposed to another. You have these specifically designed by us on the information you provide as well. Associated health and safety policies. So for example, you may look at we'll ask you to share some of your documentation with us as a client, and it may be that you've got a moving and handling policy, which is fantastic, but it's maybe about 9-10 years old. There's been a number of recommendations come in since then. There may be a policy you have or you don't have on COSH, or the control of substances hazardous to health. These legislative changes have taken place quite prolifically over the last number of years. You want to know, for example, you want a guidance document on employees, staff and visitor and management responsibilities in terms of health and safety. We provide all that. Risk assessments, if you have a particular need for risk assessments in one sector of your business, another one for another one, we'll provide these. We'll provide you risk assessment standard sheets, but they'll be legally compliant and they will be in your name. And if you have any difficulties with what these mean, we won't just simply email them to you or send them out. We'll come and sit down with you. We have health and safety professionally qualified experts who will come out to your site and talk you through what you want, first of all, and then tell you what you need and how we can somewhere meet in the middle where you're completely legally compliant. Training's another one, for example. Training on health and safety, things like fire awareness. You can't have too many of these, and we're legally obliged, as you probably know, to have at least one a year, and good practice is maybe twice a year to do fire training. And you may do that as employers anyway, but as part of a whole package which incorporates every aspect of health and safety, associated policies, we provide all that for you, and they will always be changed in accordance with legal changes as well, and that happens quite frequently. As I said, we're a firm of practicing solicitors. We are not simply former HR people who operate and sort of use their knowledge from the background of standard HR advice to whether it be a public service company or a private company. You do, as I say, you're allocated a specific account manager, and that's your personal contact. And you can phone them, contact them, not just Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. We don't just go home and leave you on your own then. You'll be given a dedicated contact number, a mobile number of that account manager, which is yours, who will walk through with you, including working with other experts such as health and safety and risk management specialists, which we've already spoken about, and will know every aspect of your business, where it pertains to us and where you want it to. So you won't phone up and just get somebody on a recorded message. You'll get someone who will be available on call to decide what they need to do in terms of advising you or what next procedure, next step you need to make, if on any aspects of the employment of your staff, health and safety, contracts and so forth. Again, we are Lexel accredited, and at this point, maybe I defer to my colleague Zahir to tell us what that means and how we've managed to achieve Lexel accreditation status.
We are Lexel accredited, which is in essence a standard or level of service that you have to provide in order to achieve this accreditation. It has taken a lot of hard work, but thankfully we're there, and we do intend to stay there. So it in essence is a very high level of service we are providing in terms to the clients and how we work on the files as well.
Thanks. Okay. We've got a couple of slides. Okay, thanks very much for that.
Oops.
I suppose the point we're making there is, of course, that we are regulated, which will come to again. And we've achieved for our standards and business practice the accreditation of Lexel, which is not something to give away. We'll talk about shortly. Now, these site visits, I've said, you've heard me probably referring before earlier there to site visits. So we are on the end of the phone, and we have email contact, of course. But certainly in the beginning, and at any time where it's become relevant in the course of your contract with us, we will send out professional, properly qualified and suitable professional advisors to sit down with you and talk about any aspects of your health and safety, your HR practice, where we believe you're not compliant, and employment law and so forth. And any matters, of course, as well regarding regulatory bodies. In the care sector, for example, I mean, it goes without saying, you'll be highly familiar with the powers and the interventions of the Care Quality Commission, the local authority safeguarding departments and so forth. And as I'm sure you're aware, these people have a habit of making themselves familiar with you, and can be constructive, but they're very, very quick to tell you where you're going wrong. And of course, carry the power of sanctions and intervention, which many of you may be familiar with. And we'll come out if you've got any issues with these. If, for example, you've just received quite a sharp letter from the local safeguarding authority, and you're not quite sure what the implications of what they're saying are, of course, you can phone up and you may be lucky to speak to them. They may or may not communicate with you over the phone, depending on the relationship you've got. But when any of these letters, particularly from CQC, talk about what you need to next do, for example, a first or second tier tribunal, that sort of thing, I've got the pro forma, what do I do with this? That's where we're in, if needs be, and if it's very urgent, we'll come out to see you, we'll meet you face to face. And we do, as I said before, we do produce a periodic. Now that can be bi-monthly, quarterly, whatever you want. And we'll send it out to all our clients, giving them advice and guidance on the latest changes to the law. What we don't say is, for example, in terms of pension auto-enrolment or the national living wage, here it is, that's it. It's the old, who does that apply to? What's this about over 25-year-olds and so on? Speak to us, no problem. We'll ring you, we'll come and see if anything needs direct explanation. And any update to your present systems, your payroll or whatever. And this is the whole purpose of this being, that this is to make your business easier to operate. And so you've got a grasp of it, you know, you become familiar with this after a while. Your account manager will be in regular contact anyway. If after, say, 6 weeks, 2 months at the most, we've not heard from you, no problems. And they say no news is good news, but you'll still get a call from us asking if everything's okay. Is there anything else we need to provide for you in the meanwhile? Okay. So we already talked quite a bit about these as well, but it's the red tape. The point I'm trying to emphasise here is the red tape you come across through the regulatory bodies, and some care providers, of course, have dealings with the NMC, of course, as well, where you have registered staff, registered nursing staff. We've talked about employment tribunals and ACAS, and the Equality and Human Rights Commission. You know, these are very stringent laws that we can easily fall foul of. And government directives such as health and safety, but working time regulations, contract compliance. These are perhaps areas that you may or may not be fully conversant with. That's something that we're there for as part of our standard contract guidance. So just to give you a bit of a flavour, a lot of you will be thinking, well, you know, how far does this go? What do I need, you know? Some people may be considering, if you have a business which is more than a dozen, maybe over 20 staff, you may be thinking, well, if I get an HR advisor in, you know, such and such as Jenny, she's very good, she's down at accounts, but she once worked in HR and all that, and she'll be able to give her a bit of a pay rise, and you know, and she can sort these things out for us. We don't really need a legal company sitting in the background that we pay every month. Well, let's look at I mean, we've had this, and we've dealt with this directly, this is why we're presenting it now to you. You get someone, let's say, who focuses exclusively in HR, and that's your go-to person. They're not going to work, on average, more than 40 hours. They're certainly, on average, certainly not going to work more than 48 hours, according to the European Working Time Directive, unless they opt out. But they're going to have annual leave, sick leave, other forms of absence, special leave, carers leave, and so forth. And what you're going to get from them, depending on their level of qualification. They may even be a former HR expert. They may be someone who you've decided to hire after a recruitment process. But it's going to be pretty limited. One thing that will not be is legally qualified. Unfortunately, that's how it works. And all they're going to do in many cases is be a contact point or a conduit to legal services which you'll probably have to buy externally anyway. So let's look at a reasonable cost, sort of the ones I've dealt with. HR advisors, variously between, it's quite a range, but 20 to about 35,000 per income per annum. And that's not including on-costs such as employers' NI contributions, holiday pay and so forth. And are they legally regulated? The truth and the answer is no. You've got us, if you're a client of ours, you've got a 7-day service including the evenings, right up to the end of the night. And the range of services